Good morning. It's corn plot tour day. So we're going to go through all of the Golden Harvest corn hybrids that we have in my plot. I go all the way from 100-day maturity up to 113-day. We'll hit on all of the key ones for my geography and my sales territory here. I'll touch on some of the other stuff that it's in the plot, but I don't sell a lot of because it just hasn't fit for me for whatever reason. But yeah, great information to come in this one. A little bit different than my standard video, but let's get started with it. As we're getting started here, a couple of notes. One, this plot was planted on, I believe, May 15th. It was some of the last corn that we planted, so we'll pull some ears and look, but it's not going to be as far along as some of the early planted corn that we've been looking at in other videos. Each entry here is 6 rows wide, and they run the length of the field from here over to the farm on the other end of it. So yeah, that's what we got out here. Okay, starting it off with our 100-day corn. So you will notice in our lineup, the first two are kind of the maturity minus 100, right? So 100 minus 00, that's 100. Over here, we've got 01, 100, yeah, 101 day. Anyway, you get the idea. So 00A97. Now this one here was new maybe 2 years ago or something. It has kind of replaced the 99E68 that I had been using that I liked a lot. That was a pretty good corn. This one seems to be a little bit better. This one is an Agrasure Artesian hybrid, which means it has Golden Harvest kind of drought optimization, water tolerance trait, whatever they want to call it. Nice, consistent ear size. It's not a huge ear, but it's not a small one, and it's very consistent. Not a lot of ear flex in this one. It can handle higher planting populations. For my guys, this is about as early as I go. I have a few people that will plant a little bit earlier corn than that, but definitely for our farm, that's on the very early side, and it's a pretty good option here. It's done really well. It works well across multiple soil types. It's not something that you have to be super concerned about positioning and making sure that it's planted on the right acre. It'll go wherever you put it. All right, moving on here. The next one you'll see is 01B63. Now, an important sidebar here while we're talking about this one. Any hybrid you see with a B in the middle is brand new for 2024. We're calling it the B series, which seems like a marketing fail on Golden Harvest part, but hey, whatever. That's what they call them. So this one is new. I don't know a ton about it, but we're going to talk about kind of the 100 to 103 day stuff. We've got, what do we got? 5 hybrids in here. They're all very strong and look excellent. So 01B63, let's focus on this one. This one has excellent plant health. It's what you're going to notice, and we're not going to walk out into these a whole lot here, but has good tolerance against disease, specifically against northern corn leaf blight, and it has very good early season emergence, comes out of the ground good. You know, something that could be planted early if that's if you're looking for a hybrid to plant when it's cold and wet, like I kind of do, or cold and dry, I should say, this would be a good option. Now it's early maturing, and usually we plant our fuller season stuff first, but as you move north, this becomes more of a option for that. Has very good roots and stalks. You can plant it a little bit heavier populations if you want to. Nice ear on here, nice straight rows. Looks pretty good. You'll notice we're just starting to dent on this. This 101 day, if we go back and look at our 100 day, that ear was just a little bit more developed or farther along. We've got a few more kernels that are dented, but not a lot. We got a long ways to go in the corn plot corn here. All right, so now we're going to move on to 02K39. Now this is not a new hybrid. This one has been around for a while. Has very good ear flex. Tremendous leaf and plant type. It's a very tall hybrid, big, wide, broad leaves on it. Pretty good silage hybrid as you move north from here. Good ear flex on this. This one here yields really well. I want to say that it was 3rd in the plot last year. I'll have to double check that. But it was the best yielding of anything in the early, like sub 110 day in the plot last year by quite a wide margin here at my Waldron plot, I believe. So really good corn. The one kind of drawback or watch out with this one is it gets its yield by flexing really big kernels. And when you have really big kernels, generally you have lower test weight. So this is not going to be something that sets the world on fire with test weight. Now we can have an argument about whether or not test weight matters all day long. But I will tell you that as long as you're not getting docked for test weight, and if it's over 54 pounds, yield trumps everything. Yield trumps everything. And this one will win on a yield basis. All right, so now we come to another one that we've had for a little while, this 03 R40 here. And while most of these other three are fairly broadly adapted and you can plant them anywhere you want, this one requires a little bit more management. So it likes to be on your more productive ground, better ground. It doesn't handle stressed soils and stuff quite as well as what those other ones might. And so where you're going to manage it, you're going to spray fungicides on it, maybe split apply your nitrogen, that kind of stuff. This is a great hybrid. I had a livestock customer of mine last year that planted some of this at 103 day. I don't think he intended to chop it, but it ended up getting chopped because it was sort of late planted. And so they chopped it for corn silage. And when he was running the chopper, he called me and said, make sure I have a whole lot more of that ordered for next year, because the plant health on it and the silage quality and yield was so good. He was really impressed. So really good from that standpoint. I always take it to grain because we don't chop corn, and it has really good grain quality. It's got heavy test weight, kind of the opposite of the 02K39 over there. But this one generally has a little bit smaller kernels, just puts a lot more rows around. Really nice ears. You can see this one's actually dented more than some of the 101 and 100 day stuff is. A little bit more of a fixed ear. It requires you to push the populations up there a little bit, and it'll perform really well. I like this one. That said, I think we're starting to move on from it because the next one we're going to talk about here is going to steal a lot of acres from the 03 R40. All right, 03 B19. Remember what that B stands for. B19, that means it is a new launch for 2024, and we've got our first look at it here in the plot. And one thing that has really stood out as we start looking at this one, if you don't like seeing tip back in your corn and you want a corn that's going to fill all the way to the end of the tip of the ear, and you want straight rows and, you know, that fair ear, this is your hybrid. It puts kernels on the end of the ear. Like, you can't get any more on there. That's as good as it gets. Almost every ear you look at is that way. Now, that said, this hybrid will flex. And so a lot of times people will say, well, if it filled to the end of the ear, you didn't plant it thick enough. You should have planted you should have had a higher planting population. I believe this was planted at 33,000. Yes, that is normally a good indicator. On this particular hybrid, it's gonna fill to the end of the ear pretty much no matter what. What's gonna happen if you over push the population, the ears are just gonna get shorter, a little bit less around. It's gonna flex, it's still gonna fill to the end of the ear. Likewise, if you plant the population lower, that's where you're going to get those big long ears that fill right to the tip. So you want a good show corn that you want to show off the kernel fill or grain fill and stuff, plant this one at about 25,000 and go out there and harvest some ears, and you'll be impressed. Much more broadly adapted into where it can be planted than the 03 R40, which is why we're probably going to lean towards this one, assuming everything looks good through the rest of the season and through harvest here. But this is one of the two that I am pretty much the most excited about as far as new stuff in our lineup. I think this is going to take a big chunk of the acres of corn that I sell. Maybe a little bit limited here in 24, but moving forward from there, assuming we have good luck with it, I'm going to sell a whole lot of 03 B19. So I like it. It looks good. One thing I have not talked about or touched on is the trait package. So you'll notice this one says AA right here. That stands for Agrosure Above. That means it has above ground insect trait protection, corn borer trait in it. Does not have a rootworm trait in it. Whether that one does for next year or not, I'm not sure. I don't think so. Sometimes when they're brand new, it takes them an extra year to get to a Duracade version like this 03 R40. The DV stands for Duracade Viptera. And so it has above ground and below ground trait package. Plus it has the Agrisure Viptera trait, which controls corn earworm, western bean cutworm, black cutworm, the broad lepidopteran pest. So anyway, all 5 of these that we just talked about, that's a very strong lineup. I don't think anybody in the industry has better 5 hybrids in that 100 to 103 day than what Golden Harvest does right now. I'm very, very excited about all of them. They're not all perfect. You know, a couple of them have some drawbacks. The placement on 03R40, the test weight on 02K, we're still learning the other ones, but there's one that will fit on any farm that plants in that maturity range. And I'm excited about that. I wish that it kept going a little bit more. We'll get there, but 100 to 103 is the very early side of my maturity zone. And we've got that covered pretty well here. Now, as we keep moving on here, we're gonna move a little bit faster. So we have 06A27. This one was new last year for me. I didn't pick a new ear. This is from the field day a week and a half ago. It's shriveled up significantly since then. This hybrid performed better than I expected it to. And in fact, let's talk about 06A right next to 07G, and then we'll talk about 07G a little bit more. But 07G was new last year. I planted a little bit of it. We had some to put in the field. I actually did a half of a field with 06A and 07G. The 06A beat that one by 30 bushel for me. I don't care for this hybrid. I don't care for it at all. Now, when this came out, there was not a lot of fanfare, not a lot of hype behind it, because I was told it doesn't have a ton of top end yield potential. It just doesn't seem to have that kick that we need in a hybrid. Well, let me tell you something about our soil types and the environment that we're growing in. We're sort of in a stressy area. We don't have super productive soils and stuff where we're raising 240 and 250 bushel corn consistently. Like, I would tell you that 180 to 190 it's a decent crop for us. Like, that's not a failure like it is in some places in this country. And so something that's its strong suit is performing well on stressy acres, that 06A27. Yeah, that's gonna fit for us. So I'm actually getting more excited about this one and less excited about the 07G. The 07G, for whatever reason, has not performed very well for me. Now, in talking to my agronomist, he says the 07 works better the farther south you take it. The 06 works better the farther north you take it. Well, we're as far north in Ohio as you can get, and I think that we fit that one's maturity zone, or just zone of adaptation, I guess, better than the 07G. So I really like this 06A27. I think I'm gonna try a lot more of it this next year, and we'll see how it goes. But you know, it doesn't have the top end. It's not a racehorse hybrid, but for us, I don't need racehorse hybrids. I need solid, consistent performers, and I think 06A27 is one of those. Plus, we're starting to get into what I want to plant maturity zone a little bit more than that real early stuff. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time here on this 07G, but I want to show you something that it does that makes me not like it. Okay, so we're actually going to walk out in this one. Plant health looks good. It looks like good corn, but it's not going to be good corn. Let me see if I can do this and hold the camera at the same time. We're going to peel an ear back. All right, I got the outside husks off. Let's see if we can get this inside with one hand while I hold a camera and see if we find the issue that I find on almost every single ear. Yep, we're gonna see it again here. So 2 years ago, when this was a brand new launch, I had it out, 2 bags they gave me. I planted it out in the field, and I got a call in August, or in July maybe, from my agronomist. Said, hey, go look at that and tell me what you see. And it didn't look too bad, and that's not a horrible ear, but if you look at the silks in here, can you see how those are growing all kinds of crazy circles? They're not growing straight out the end of the ear. This hybrid, under certain weather conditions, I am told, will do something called silk balling, where it kind of balls these silks up on the end of the ear there. Get rid of the dry ones, and they grow in circles instead of coming out the end, and you get this tangled up mess, which is not good, because then this does not pollinate. It's always the tip. They don't pollinate very well, and I see it on every single ear I do for this hybrid. I have no room for it on my farm. I hear it works better in the south where that environmental condition apparently doesn't exist, but this has happened 3 years in a row for me. And I also hear that it works really well in Wisconsin. The guys in Wisconsin seem to love this hybrid. I don't know why. I do not. We're also going to glance right past this one. I was excited for this one, and unfortunately it's not something we're going to be able to sell. It came out, and then this year it failed the GT off-type testing. So basically the trait conversion to get the Roundup Ready trait in it failed, and where guys were spraying Roundup on it, and in test environments or the trial units that we had out this year, they were seeing more than 10 to 15% loss where their plants were dying off. They were not Roundup resistant. That'll kill a hybrid faster than anything. So that one is dead. We will not see it. It was going to be new this year. It is now dead. So we'll move on. 08R52. This one's been out for a couple of years now as well. Name of the game with this one is consistency. It is not showy. It is not pretty. It's yellow. In fact, you can just see it just looking here. This hybrid, these 6 rows are yellower than the ones next to it. It doesn't look that great, but it puts on a really nice consistent ear. It flexes and it can go anywhere. It is not something you have to manage highly. It's not going to win the plot. It's never going to lose the plot. It's not going to be last. So I do like this hybrid. It's growing on me. The one thing that kind of I don't care for about it is that the grain tends to stay wet. I would classify this more as 110 day than 108 day. It just doesn't dry down real well, but it's going to yield okay. And we got decent ears here. There is nothing wrong with that ear at all. This is not bad corn. 09T26. This is an interesting one. So this was new a year ago. I planted a box of it this year that actually I don't think looks too bad. It puts on a really showy ear, a really pretty ear. Let me pull one. We got to pull an ear. Now it's going to tip back a little bit, but the girth of these ears on this hybrid is just incredible. And that one's 18 around. It does have some of that kernel red streak in it. You can see a little bit starting to develop there. Just a genetic trait. But if the other hybrids in this maturity zone were not as good as they are, we would move a bunch of this, I think. But the 110 days we're about to talk about and the 08R52 kind of outweigh the 09T26. But I mean, look at the kernel depth on there. That's not bad corn. Like, that one looks like it's going to be really good. All right, we're moving on to our 110 days, and I have 3 of them in the plot here, and we need to talk about all 3 of them together. So 2 of them are older hybrids, not older, but they've been out for a couple of years, the ones that we know really well. One of them has got a B in it, which means it's brand new for next year. So we'll start here with 10D21. 10D21 is a 110 day that has excellent roots. It has excellent stalks. It has tremendous plant health. It is very healthy, good corn. It tends to be a little bit shorter, but it will stand really well. You're not going to have any agronomic issues with 10D21. The other characteristic about it that's very defining is that it is a very determinant ear. You cannot plant 10D21 unless you are willing to plant 36,000 plants per acre or higher. Last year, I had that as a corn grower's entry. We may have pushed it too far. I planted it at 42,000. It was in the 260s. Like, it was really good corn. But just has to be managed the right way. High populations, that kind of thing. Now over here, we have 10L16. 10L16 is the exact opposite of 10D21. It's got a very shallow, small root system. It has pretty crappy plant health. It's very susceptible to northern corn leaf blight. It doesn't have terrible stalks, but it's not going to stand the best if you don't manage it and take care of it. It also has a huge flex ear. You cannot plant this at 36,000. In fact, if you're going to plant it over 34,000, it's too much. I recommend anywhere from 30 to 32,000 plants per acre. Keep those populations down, let the stalks protect get a little bit bigger from lack of competition, and let the ears flex. That said, when those 2 were brand new, I remember seeing a first trial, which is an independent seed testing trial in Indiana, where 10L and 10D placed first and second. Like, they could not be more opposite. They both were rock star from a yield perspective. And so we like both of them. The 10L16 has a more broad fit for me. If a guy is willing to spray a fungicide, 10L16 is about as good as anything out there. It just has been tremendous. Probably the #1 selling hybrid in Ohio. If not this year, it was the last 2 years. It's just been really, really good. Now, we talk about those two, and I said we need to talk about 10B61, all three of these at the same time. There's a reason 10B is in the middle of 10D and 10L, and it's because it really is a blend of both of them. If you take the roots and stalks and plant health from 10D21, combine it with the ear flex of 10L16, you get 10B61. It's got the roots and the plant health to keep it alive and strong and not have to have a fungicide. I'm not telling you not to spray fungicide. I'm saying you don't have to. But it has the ear flex where you don't have to push the populations like you do on 10D21. That's the one I'm the most excited about. So I said 03B19 down there was one of the top two. This is the one that I'm the most excited about in our lineup because it fits. It's the heart of my lineup, or right on the full season side of it. It's what the maturity that I prefer to plant. I think that one, maybe not this year, but a year from now, will be my top selling hybrid. That one looks fantastic. All right, now we start getting into some of the full season stuff here, but some more of my favorite hybrids. 10L has been great for me. 11V has been better. So 11V was the one that I planted 2 years ago, very, very early into cold, dry soils. It got snowed on. I entered it in the NCGA trial and it went 285. This is really good corn. I have it again in my corn growers trial in the field behind our farm on the other side of this one. I am super, super excited to harvest my 11V76 this year. Last year, it was the best dryland corn that we had, non-irrigated, because I did not have this in my irrigated field. We had the 10D21 and this 12S that we're going to talk about next. But this 11V76 under no water or dryland conditions has been absolutely phenomenal. This is my favorite corn in our entire lineup right now. And if I can get a guy to plant 111-day corn, I'm going to sell him this one every single time. Now, one thing about 11V76, it doesn't always have the prettiest ear. That said, I pulled this one, and it looks pretty darn good. Like, I'm really happy with that. A lot of times it's not filled to the tip. It's not gonna have a ton of girth. I can touch my fingers reaching around it. But for whatever reason, this one hides its yield. It doesn't look the best, and then you take the combine and you're like, oh, yeah, that's really good corn. That's what my experience has been the last 2 years with it. That spot where I had that NCGA entry that yielded 285, when I did my kernel count yield check on it before harvest, it came back at like 196. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. It yielded almost 100 bushel better than what the kernel count said that it should. So 11V is good. It may not look like it's going to be good, but it is. Now, the reason that I planted 11V in that situation where it was cold and dry early is because it has very, very good early season emergence and vigor scores. The only one that may be better, which I did not have any of that year, is 12S75. So 12S is the hybrid that we planted under irrigation last year. Took second place in the NCGA Corn Growers Contest for irrigated conventional till in the state of Michigan. We ran 281 bushel an acre with it last year. And it's just really, really good corn. A pretty big, tall plant. It's got a more upright leaf than a lot of our hybrids do. My agronomist likes to call this the landlord corn because it's very good early season emergence. Like I said, it's got a beautiful dark green color to it. It's just going to look really pretty all year, and it yields to show it. So I like this one. We're really pushing the maturity zone here. I will plant some of it. I won't plant a lot of it because I need stuff to be drying down in the fall, and at 112 day you're starting to push it here. So we'll see. I've got a field of this year. It is one that it's actually the one that I've got my source trial in, and we are trying to push the yields there as well. That's a NCGA entry, and we're going to see what it does. Dryland, non-irrigated, but underwater it works really well. I do know that. As we move into the 113-day stuff here, I don't know a ton about them. I can talk about the 13D55 a little bit because, well, my agronomist talked me into planting, I don't know if I planted 16 bags, 24 bags, something like that, of this hybrid this year. It looks really good out in the field. I'm a little concerned on how wet it's going to be at harvest, but we're testing it. We're going to see. It seems like it's going to be okay. There are a couple of hybrids in our lineup that are fuller season. Well, one fuller season, 15J91, that I've never planted at 115 day. That one, this one shares a parent with that and maybe the 12S or the 10L or something, but it's got parents from two really good hybrids, and so I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And then we've got the 03B17 here. I'm sorry, not 03, 13B17. Obviously a new one for 24 that I don't know a ton about. It looks decent. One thing I do know is I don't think it has real good early season emergence scores. Something you're going to want to wait for the soil to be a little bit warmer before you plant it. That tends to be a problem for me. At 113 day, I need to get it in the ground as early as possible. So I will probably shy away from this one. If you're 100 miles south of me, you don't need to do that. But I think this one will be a better fit. But the 111 and 112 days here both have such good early season emergence scores that if I'm going to plant something early, we can use those, plant full season stuff there. So that is the corn lineup. Maybe we'll check out some of the agronomic trials here in just a second after we wrap this up. But yeah, we've got, what's that, 14 or 15 hybrids out here. And we're very strong on the 100 to 103 day. We're very strong at 110, 11, and 12 day and fuller season. Like I said, I don't go that far. We do have some hybrids in the middle there. I would like to see some new stuff coming. Unfortunately, that 108 day is not going to be the answer like we would hoped it would be. But there is something in here that fits every farm. I am quite certain of that, and can be some of the best corn that you have on your farm. Whether that's the 02K39 just flat out yielding at the low end, the 03B19 looks like it's going to be the new 103 day that's going to be our go-to. It could be, you know, the 10B61, the 10L16, or either of these two rock stars here at 111 and 112 day with the 11V76 and the 12S75. I like all of those hybrids. That's all stuff that I'm going to plant on my farm. It gets very difficult for me to narrow it down sometimes. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it is not. I don't like planting 8 to 10 hybrids on our farm. That's just too many. Ideally, it would be 5 or 6, and I could narrow it down to that and plant them. I tend to plant a little bit more than I would recommend most people do, just from the sense of I'm selling this stuff and I want to see it. That has always been, I feel like, my strong suit as a seed dealer for Golden Harvest is I plant this stuff. Like, I know these because I'm walking them every day. I am out in the fields, not just through the plot here, but out actually in the field in a commercial environment where we are growing these hybrids, and I can see what they do. I plant them, I spray them, I harvest them, I walk them. I see them more than most people do, and so I know how they're going to react and what they're going to do in different situations and scenarios, and what fits on your farm more than somebody that doesn't farm, I guess, would be my argument. So that said, thanks for watching this one. It is seed selling season. If you're watching this shortly after it posts, contact your local Golden Harvest seed advisor. If you're anywhere close to me, contact me. Send me an email. You can find me. Go to my website, xlseeds.com, and you can find some more information. I would be happy to walk you through these. And if you're a Golden Harvest employee, I would appreciate a sponsorship. I'm not gonna lie. I do some considerable advertising for you. I suppose when you give it to them for free, though, they have no reason to sponsor me, do they? All right, we're going to move on to some agronomic trials here. So the first one we have is a population trial. So we planted a hybrid at 28,000, at 34,000, and at 40,000 plants per acre. So pretty big, drastic jumps there. But we wanted to show this off because the hybrid that I used is the new 110 day, the 10B61. And if you remember back to what I was talking about a few minutes ago over there, 10B61 combines the plant health benefits and the roots and stalks of 10D21 with the ear flex of 10L16. 10L16 has a tremendous amount of ear flex, more than anything else in our lineup. And so what we expect to see happen when you plant a flex hybrid at higher populations, the ears get smaller, but you have more of them. A determinate hybrid, like the 10D21, you expect the ears to stay the same size. They may be smaller than a flex hybrid at a low population, but you plant it at high populations, the ears stay the same size, you get lots of them, and that's where the yield comes from. I went and pulled an ear from our 28, from our 34, and from our 40,000. Let's compare and see what we got, shall we? I think my trial worked. That is incredible. That is just like, it could not be any more perfect for what you expect here. 28,000, heck of an ear. Beautiful ear. Still got a little tip back, but just nice, big, girthy, full, long ear. 34,000. So we got an extra 6,000 of these per acre. We got a little more tip back. Still a really nice ear, but not quite as big as this one. And then when you go all the way to 40,000, well, we pushed it too hard, right? We got a ton of tip back. The grain fill is much, much shorter than on the other two, and you get this stair-step effect. Now, the gap between this one and this one is much greater than the gap between this one and this one. So I would make an argument here, this one is probably gonna be our highest yielding. You take 6,000 more of these than these, I bet there's more corn out there. We'll see when we go to harvest it, but optimum population for this hybrid, I would guess, is somewhere around 32,000. Somewhere between the 28 and the 34. The 34 is pushing it, but it obviously handled it okay, just don't need to go quite that high. So from a population demo, it doesn't get any better than that. All right, our next strips in the agronomic trials, I highly doubt we're gonna see much of a difference in, but we'll go ahead and take a look. So this one, we're using that same 10B61, but now it's a starter fertilizer trial. So this particular strip got 2x2x2 fertilizer without any in-furrow pop-up. So this would be just the, it was a little bit of 1034O, ammonium thiosulfate, and 28% liquid nitrogen with a little bit of zinc in the 2x2x2 without having any of the 721-3 and humic acid in furrow. So then if we move down, and I'm showing you that to show you that the leaves are still pretty green all the way down. It actually looks pretty good there. If we move down to the next strip, we'll see what this flag says. I believe this is both. Okay, so this is what we did on everything. Actually, it looks a little more yellow down here for whatever reason. But this had the 2x2x2 plus the in furrow. And we could try and pull ears and see if there's any difference. I just highly doubt we're actually going to see anything, so we're not going to waste our time doing that. The combine will tell the story when we get there. To here, this one is in furrow only with no 2x2. And again, can't really see a ton of difference. And then over here, we have one with neither. It had no starter fertilizer. It did get the side dress nitrogen, but no starter. And right here, it doesn't look too bad, although there's a bit of a gap right up there that we walk out past. And when you look way down there, you can see some yellowness, but just something that we're gonna have to see when we harvest. And one thing that kind of doesn't show up in the yield column, but does make a difference to us in the bottom line is when I've done these starter trials in the past, a lot of times the starter gets the plants growing faster in the spring and their growth stages ahead. And so where we put the starter on the corn may be 2% drier when we go to harvest it. Well, that matters. That adds up a lot. So those are the types of things that we'll be comparing there. So that is the Golden Harvest corn plot. That's what I've got for you today. We will do the soybeans in a separate video because I'm sure this one is plenty long. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions and comments about specific hybrids or about anything in this process, feel free to leave me a comment down below. Send me a message, send me an email, send me whatever. Just get a hold of me somehow. And if you are not one of my customers, make sure you tell your Golden Harvest Seed Advisor and their sales rep how awesome my video was and how much you appreciate it. So thanks everybody. We'll see you when we see you.